Hello, everybody. I am here today and greatly honored to have with me Dr. Thomas Horn, who is the Vice Chair of the Department of Dermatology at Mass General Hospital. He is a Harvard Medical School professor of dermatology and pathology part-time, and he is the Emeritus Executive Director of the American Board of Dermatology, which was a big part of his professional life. I'm here today to talk with Tom about his upcoming transition to whatever he decides to call it. We can talk about that, retirement. So Tom, tell us what your plans are for the coming year.
I have a large background in the German language, and I've always wanted to pursue that interest. And so I've been accepted to the Middlebury College master's program in German. And I'll spend 6 weeks in Middlebury and then 2 semesters in Germany in the coming year.
Do you have any apprehensions about this?
Yeah, I do. Things just don't stick the way they used to at 22 in my brain. I'm fortunate that I have a good foundation in the language. So I feel fairly prepared just from a knowledge base and a grammar base, not that it's flawless. And so my concern mainly is that I think I forget things more easily, or that they just don't stick the way they used to. But I still feel intellectually engaged and ready to take this on. And if it's a little more difficult for me than someone in his or her 20s, then so be it. I was very careful to make sure that the folks in Middlebury didn't see this as a negative, but they have adult learners in the programs, and so I'm sure they're used to it.
So tell us a little more how you realized it was time to make this big step to something completely different from what you've been doing for decades. Was it an sudden epiphany, or was it a long process of figuring this out?
For me, it's a process. I'm not one of these plus column, minus column people who can sort things out that way. I sort of wake up one day and realize after a long period of reflection what the right thing to do is, and it's more of a gut instinct than it is an equation. I have throughout my career used 4 elements in making decisions like this. One is a simple one. Are you happy in what you're doing? If I'm not happy, I feel like I won't do a good job. And so that very fundamental question is critical to me. The second question I ask myself is whether I'm fulfilling my goals and also fulfilling the expectations of me in whatever role I'm in. The third question I ask myself is how it impacts my family. And at this point, children are gone, so it's just my partner. And lastly, I ask myself what the opportunity cost is for continuing to pursue what I'm doing. And at various stages of my career, those 4 elements have had variable importance. And this one really was more important in question 2 and 4. I'm very happy at Mass General. I'm very thankful to be here. I'm treated with respect, and I have absolutely no complaints. So that was easy. Number 4, though, not going back, number 2, I came here first to start a laboratory, an outreach laboratory for dermatopathology, which is now thriving. So I feel as though I've met my goals and the expectations of me. I wouldn't want to leave the departments of dermatology and pathology hanging, having made commitments to do what I came to do. And I'll just skip to 4, which gets at this German notion. I've wondered for a long time about what I left behind, if you will, when I went to medical school or chose not to do. It's that path in the yellow road, the 2 paths in the yellow woods. And so that's the opportunity cost. I feel it would be vastly easier for me in many ways to keep going. Again, I'm not disgruntled or dissatisfied. But the opportunity cost there is significant because I don't want to continue to wonder what it would feel like to use that part of my brain rather than just my medical brain. And so that really was critical in making this decision. That's how I got there. And it was just a matter of turning it all over in my head for months, years, even.
What kind of support have you gotten in this process? You're going to continue your connection to Mass General, correct?
I would like to. The ink is not dry on that deal, so I've asked my department chairman whether I can stay on in my role as vice chair for academic affairs. And so far, it seems as though that is possible. I've agreed to continue in the role while I'm away. What we've learned in COVID, many of the things we've learned in COVID, but one certainly is that these electronic forms of communication work, even if they're not often optimal. They do allow us to do good work. And so we've been conducting business this way for a while in terms of annual career conferences, in terms of promotion committee meetings. And so I feel I can keep doing this, even from Germany. Yeah. And that gets back to my first bucket, which is, are you happy? I'm happy. I don't particularly want to leave the institution or leave the department. I'm very, very fortunate. I realize it. So, yeah.
What would you want your fellow faculty to know as they consider a transition, whether they call it a retirement or a transition toward retirement?
Don't let fear guide you, because it's just so much easier to keep doing what we're doing out of concern about what the alternatives are. So that's one thing. I had to sort of get past that notion of being afraid of making a radical change in my life. And the second thing is something that's been said over and over again, which is transition to or retire to something. I read a fascinating piece in the New York Times. It was years ago, and it has really guided me. I don't know that it's necessarily true, but I think it's true for me. And the advice was, in advance of retirement, focus on something in which you already have a foundation of knowledge or expertise, rather than starting something new. The contention was that it's far harder at 65 to learn something from the ground up, whereas if you are already knowledgeable in a certain area, fluent in German, fluent in French, or whatever it might be, you're probably going to be more content in focusing on that. And I took that to heart, and that's helped inform me. The other thing that's helped me make this decision is that my mom lived to 94, and she was my main German-speaking partner. And in the last several years, she would always ask me, how are you going to maintain your German? How will you maintain your German? And I thought, well, right now I'm maintaining you. When she died, 6 months in, I thought, oh, she was right. And that helped guide my decision as well.
Mm-hmm. What are you going to miss when you go off to Germany about who you are as Dr. Horn at MGH?
Yeah. I know that I know that I get tremendous amount of respect, and that is sort of something that's at baseline for me. I'll miss that. I don't feel as though I have to prove myself in the Middlebury Masters of Program of German, but there's an element of needing to perform well for my own sake, and so I'll miss that. I will miss the Dr. Horn notion of helping somebody. But it's been 40 years since I graduated from medical school. And I know that just at a clinical level, also in terms of my research translating into practical applications for patients, that I've had an impact there as well. And so I feel content that that I've made that difference, and I can move on.
What would you call this stage of your life?
Yeah. I would say that it's a transition rather than a retirement. I'll largely be leaving clinical medicine, but I don't see it as sitting on the porch with my feet up in any way. Certainly not intellectually. I think it's a big challenge in front of me. So I think the word retirement is sort of loaded in our culture in terms of, let's move south, let's be warm, let's play with the grandkids, let's relax. And I don't feel that I need that. And so for me, it is a repurposing. It is, as I said earlier, it is a chance to explore that path that I didn't take when I chose to go to medical school. I don't regret it in any way. But I've always been curious. And so for me, it's a transition. It's a chance to explore. It's not really retirement. And I hope others see that and feel that, because I can't imagine that most people at Mass General don't have rich cultural and intellectual lives. And so this is a transition into something else potentially.
I love that term, repurposing, because it includes the central noun purpose, which is the most important element of any meaningful life, that it has a purpose. And we can all have more than one purpose in life. And what an adventure to actually decide to pursue the road not taken originally. So thank you so much. Do you have anything else you would like to add in terms of message to fellow faculty?
I want to thank this program. I think it's very important that people reflect on what the path forward is. I would just say that we tend to forget what a phenomenal community we have at Mass General, and that's from support staff all the way through physicians to folks like you. And because it's the quotidian, because it's what we see every day, we tend to shrug our shoulders and walk past it. And I hope that we reflect on how fortunate we are to be where we are, and to be able to work with such phenomenal, caring, creative, intelligent people. And so I hope that I can stay because I like that interaction. And I guess I'm just giving a plug to my colleagues, because we truly are an amazing bunch. Yeah.